From the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com, or maybe you're watching this on our rapidly growing YouTube channel. That's Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THL staff writer Brandon Peay. Joining me today, as he always does, is our very own publisher, Mr. Andrew Jones. And AJ, we just watched North Carolina take a 4-game losing streak, turn it upside down, and now the Tar Heels are riding a 4-game winning streak after beating Michigan 80-76 tonight in a very close game. But AJ, the first thing I want to talk about this game is obviously the play of Armando Bacot. I thought the big man had probably one of his, I'm not going to say his best game of the year, but definitely one of his best games of the year. He's played with a lot of energy. What did you see out of him tonight?
And before I answer, just so people know, you and I are both here at Spectrum Center, but we're on Zoom. We can't do this in the same room because it would be a disaster. So you're in a hallway outside the press conference room. And so you never know what's going to happen there. I'm actually in the press conference room. So just so people understand why we're have different backdrops, even though we're 20, 30, 35 feet away from each other with a wall in between.
There's only a door separating us.
Yeah, and who knows what's going to pass in front of you here any minute now. I really liked Armando. I asked Hubert after the game. You know, he had spoken about Armando being a National Player of the Year kind of guy. And I said, was this a National Player of the Year performance? And is that what you've seen the last couple of games? I hope people don't misunderstand. I wasn't asking him, is he National Player of the Year? I don't ask those questions in December, January, February. And a lot of times I don't even ask him in March. But I think what we've seen from Armando, really during the 4-game win streak, and Hubert explained why, we've seen National Player of the Year type stuff, but the last 2 games more so because he went up against huge challenges the last 2 games. First of all, with Ohio State being what they are, no, they weren't real long, but Zed Key is really good at drawing fouls and pushing guys out. And Armando showed that he could work around a big guy who might be a little bit quicker and is very cagey and is really physical in his midsection. So he has that strength that you have to work around. Armando did that in Madison Square Garden. Tonight, the challenge was a 7'1" guy that's going to play in the NBA. Could have gone there 2 years ago if he wanted to, but he's doing pretty well in NIL at Michigan, so he came back. And I love it because I want all these kids to play in college as long as they can. But this was a different challenge. This wasn't a challenge where he could score over him like he did with Zed Key sometimes. He had to use the dribble. And, you know, Hubert's talked a lot about Armando using the dribble the last couple of years, but this wasn't like at the end of his sophomore year when he drive a guy from the foul line or something like that. He's getting the ball 15 feet on the side toward the baseline. He's making moves. He got Dickinson on his hip over and over and over again. And I can't remember what his shooting numbers were, like 11 for 15 or something like that, but he went for 26. He was really, really efficient. He only had 5 rebounds. I wouldn't worry about that because Armando's rebounds are going to come. Other guys got him. Leaky had 10 today, but Armando on the offensive end really made Dickinson ineffective, and he could affect a lot of stuff. And Armando worked him. He looked like a National Player of the Year guy on offense. And then on the other end, you and I were sitting next to each other. There was that one sequence where Dickinson got the ball just outside the lower right block, and he wanted to go left because he's left-handed. But Armando went in and sort of gave him a little business there, forcing him to go right, and he missed a shot. Dickinson was 3 for 9 tonight. And if you remember last year when Carolina beat Michigan in Chapel Hill, Dickinson only played 18 minutes and scored 4 points. So Carolina took him out of the game a different way last year than Armando did tonight. Armando owned him. Armando owned him on a big-time level tonight. And when you've got Armando playing at that level on both ends of the court, it's a locked-in version of Carolina basketball, and it's their best player being at his best. And I thought that, among many reasons, is why they won the game tonight.
Yeah. Speaking of Hunter Dickinson, he and Caleb Love seemed to have gotten into some type of confrontation on the baseline in the first half. After that happened, it seemed like everything the intensity in the building took an uptick. I'm sorry. Yeah. The intensity of the building definitely took an uptick after that little confrontation. After that, North Carolina went on a little run. Did you think that was the turning point of the game for the Tar Heels?
Well, I do, and I like that. And I think that when people try to project a few months down the road, they showed some badassery, if you will, in that segment. It wasn't just, Caleb we saw the replay. Dickinson, who's a very physical player, didn't like that sequence, trying to show up Caleb a little bit, gave him sort of a knee attempt, didn't happen, but who runs over? Armando runs over. And I told you, I said, Armando's going to get a foul here too because he came over and pushed. I just kind of like that back alley mentality. People were calling, Huber called him soft at halftime against Ohio State. And there are times when Twitter has just been swarming with the soft comments, but I like what they showed there, and I like the way they responded to that. I think that the coat of armor we talked about them putting on during the Ohio State game, I thought they added another layer tonight. Not as thick a layer, but certainly one. And I thought that that put them in position to play with a little bit of chip. And we can see that these guys can have really impressive stretches when they have that chip. And Caleb loves the chip. I mean, honestly, if you're Carolina, you need to find a way to get someone on the other team to piss off Caleb. Yeah. And do it early, because when Caleb gets pissed off and he gets that chip and he's just going to try to squash someone like a bug, he's going to take a few bad shots. He's going to turn the ball over on occasion, but the dude is going to be there. And that's what we saw right after that. I mean, Caleb hopped right up. He's 6'4", Dickinson's 7'1". Dickinson looks like Paul Bunyan out there, right? Yeah. And Caleb didn't care. There was St. Louis Caleb happening right there, but Richmond Armando came in, and I just love that. I think that some of the stuff that was missing before, we've seen the last couple of games, and if you can extract that out of them 4 days before Christmas in a game that I thought they were playing pretty well at times, but they weren't riding the energy of the building, because the energy of the building was sort of trying to figure it out. They wanted to go off, but they would kind of sprout up a little bit and then die down. But they went off then, and Carolina went into a 19-6 run. Part of the 19-6 run also was Hubert trapping and setting those traps, a little bit of the pressure, took Michigan out of its comfort zone, just like it did Ohio State. Didn't get a lot of turnovers out of it, but created a lot of rush shot situations for the Wolverines. But I love that. I think that this team has that. And you can't play the NCAA tournament now. You can build toward it. And I think that that's what people need to focus on here. We've been talking about it for a while, about each game kind of stack something new on top. And that sequence right there, it was almost a gift, to be perfectly honest with you. And it was a gift that they received quite well. And I think that's part of who this team is and part of who they're going to be moving forward. And that's why they are going to be a serious national title contender once March comes.
Yeah, I may be paraphrasing, but in the post-game press conference, Caleb Love said that Coach Davis told him to fight back and whatever happens, happens. And I think this team showed a lot of fight today, and not just the physical fight with the altercation, but they also showed a mental fight. They made big plays again down the stretch, like they did against Ohio State. So there's now 2 games in a row where the game was coming down to the stretch, and the Tar Heels were able to make plays down the stretch to ultimately win the game. So I want you to talk about that, and I want you to touch on what does that mean for the Tar Heels going forward?
Some of those plays, the play that showed me that they were going to win, because Baker hits that 3 and cuts it to 3, 69-66. I think that's the one that cut it to 69-66. Or maybe it was the 3 on the top of the key, whatever it was. I turned to you and I said, I actually might lose this game. Because Michigan played well, and there were times when Carolina wasn't good defensively. Michigan got a lot of shots that they wanted, but I think the Wolverines played really, really well tonight. And sometimes you just tip your cap, for lack of a better trite phrase, and that's that. But 69-66, Carolina doesn't score. They go back on defense, so the Wolverines are positioned either tie or cut it to 1. Leaky gets the denial steal out on the wing, and then Carolina scores to go up 71-66. To me, that's the sequence. That's the winning sequence right there. And Leaky was getting pummeled on Twitter in the first half because people don't understand how good Jet Howard is. And that's a tough assignment for anybody. And Leaky kind of won that battle in the end because, the block shot, the denial, he had the basket in the lane. He had 10 rebounds tonight, had a 3 early at home. I thought he played really well in his hometown. First time here since 2019. So that sequence right there, that's winning basketball. And you have, it's kind of good that they didn't pull away and win this thing by 15 or 20 points, because all that stuff was tested again. And I think this team needs to be tested like that. They need to be kept in their focus zone. They need to keep that coat of armor on in order to win games. The more that they have to do that here for a while, I think the closer and quicker they'll get to actually 1000% cutting the cord to last year, which I think is almost done. I think the way they closed tonight out, if they would have lost this game, we would all be talking, well, the cord's not cut. Well, that leaky denial may have been the snippet, the final snippet. And then they scored as a result afterwards. So what does this mean? I think it means just that. This team can't be pushed around. They won bully ball against Ohio State, and they did some of that today. They kind of Hunter Dickinson and Michigan, you can't do that to us. And they made a statement during that run, and when they took a little bit of control of the game there, then the way that they closed it, and the guards making the plays they did. You know, how many tough shots did RJ Davis take? He hit quite a few of them, didn't hit all of them, but you love those tough shots because you know that there's a real good chance RJ is going to take them. And the fact that he can get the thing off as consistently as he does in a tight situation for a while is so impressive. Doesn't always have to go through the basket, but man, it's so impressive what he can do. Some of the stuff that Caleb was doing, the one-handed stuff, the confidence is just oozing out of him right now. We're not asking him, he was 1 for 5 or 1 for 6 from three today, but we're not asking him questions about that now because he doesn't need the 3 ball to go in to have a big scoring game. That's how his game has grown. It's grown a ton. Armando, the use of the dribble. I asked about Armando tonight, using the dribble to get position on Dickinson. And he even had one go through the legs when he was out on the beyond the 3 points, right in front of their bench, I think it was, or right in front of the fans it was. So I really think that there's all kinds of neat parts that are in the same vicinity now. They're not scattered too far. They're in the same vicinity. They kind of work with each other. They didn't need Pete Nance to have a huge game. They didn't need him to have a huge game the other day, but he made a huge play. And he was in foul trouble. And I thought Puff gave them some good minutes in the first half. He had that foul in the trap, and Hubert was getting all over him. But I love the trap. I think Puff's a really good guy you can trap with because of those arms, and he's quick, he's bouncy, and he's smart. But, you know, Puff played 14 minutes in the first half, gave them a little bit of production, had 4 rebounds. He was mixing it up in there. So I like a lot of what we saw from this team. And I know that Michigan's a team that may end up on the NCAA fence, and people are going to look back and say, well, you know, that wasn't a great win. I think it was a really good win because Michigan played at a very high level for Michigan. And Carolina didn't let Hunter Dickinson be a big factor in the game. And they made plays down the stretch. That's what you want. I think they're going into Christmas feeling really good. They've got nothing but ACC games left. I think this club is the favorite, should be the favorite to win the ACC in the regular season. I think they're the best team. They may not have played the best so far this year, but look at what Duke looks like right now. Look at what Virginia looks like right now. I think Miami's really good. I thought they had a good win last night, but I think Carolina's better. I think this team is perfectly positioned to continue ascending. And I think they'll continue ascending right into the NCAA tournament. So Carolina fans should be very pleased with the way this team has responded. And let me give a shout out to Hubert Davis because he said during a 4-game losing streak, look, we didn't get a chance to practice. So that put a lot of pressure on him and this team to get something out of practice time. And man, they have. They've added some snippets. He's gotten something from the bench each of the last 5 games, really, if you go back to Virginia Tech, the way Trimble and Nickel played late in that game. So he's pushing a lot of right buttons, and they're working. So the people who were questioning him 3 weeks ago, you got to brush that aside right now because a lot of things are pointing in the right direction right now.
Yeah. Well, AJ, I think that's an excellent place to stop. Again, North Carolina with an 80-76 win over Michigan and Charlotte, North Carolina at the Spectrum Center. The Tar Heels will go on a Christmas break. They'll be back in action December 30th against Pittsburgh. Me and AJ will be there after the game to give you the post-game coverage. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.